Welcome back, everyone. When we said the event will be packed with meaningful marketing insights, we truly meant it. So, we are all aware of the pandemic induced tectonic shift in the way new age customers engage and interact with their favorite brands. And it's not just a fleeting trend. Now, building an army of loyal customers is a fundamental part of business growth. To decode more on this, we have an insightful keynote session that will focus on winning your customers' trust and turning them into loyal advocates of your brand in a hybrid climate. Let us welcome Theresa McKendry to share her take on what drives new age consumers and how marketers can boost loyalty, payments, and commerce in today's competitive market. As the Chief Marketing Officer of Freekerly, Theresa leads the go-to-market strategy for demand and revenue creation, a customer champion and passionate brand storyteller. Theresa guides the team in setting the stage for all things Freekerly, who we are, why we win, and how we stay at the forefront of subscription. Theresa, the stage is all yours.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for a great introduction, Manali. It's been really amazing sessions all day, so I'm super excited to present, and thank you for having me. As Manali mentioned, we're going to talk today about loyalty, commerce, and the new consumer. I've studied consumer trends, payments, commerce for the last 20 years, and it's such an exciting time right now. It's such a transformative time. So I'm really thrilled to be sharing some insights from other folks in our company with you today. So first, who am I and why am I talking to you? I'm Theresa. As Manali mentioned, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Recurly. And so what do we do in the world? So we are a subscription management company. So we work with tons of great brands to really help scale them into high growth, really enabling great experience, great billing with that. So that's a little bit why we're here talking about loyalty and commerce, because there's no better intersection of that than subscriptions. So a number of things that we've seen. So the pandemic, in some parts of the world, we're still in it. In many parts of the world, we're hopefully re-emerging. So what have we seen? We've seen a dramatic shift in channels, right? Everyone on this call, everyone in the world was really forced to change how they shop and where they shop. And we'll share with you that a lot of those trends are really fomented. They're going to persist long after COVID hopefully goes away, or we move into kind of a post-pandemic or endemic reality. It's changed what people value. We're going to share a really great study with you from Accenture about this reimagined consumer. There's new values. People have refactored how they think about what they value. And so that's really important for brands, for marketers, for anybody trying to drive commerce and engagement to deeply understand. There's new generational distinctions, right? There's always been a divide between generations, no matter which one you come from. And some of the trends that are emerging with Gen Z as they're moving into really wallet ownership and buying base. It's interesting, right? And heavily influenced by everything that's been going on with the pandemic, as well as the world at large. Supply chain challenges, we'll talk about those. Then you see what the brands are doing, either innovating or reacting, right? There's new consumer models, direct to consumer. A lot of brands have eschewed traditional distribution and gone straight to consumer. There's also new models of how they're doing that, right? Which subscription is a big one. That's why I love this space, right? It's kind of reimagined how consumers buy. You no longer own, you experience. And it's really the seat of power has shifted from the brand to the buyer, right? Everything from data to purchasing power really radically shifted and kind of continued that pendulum swing, or fast track that pendulum swing in the last few years. So just a lot of really exciting trends. Macroeconomic, we've got strong pandemic tailwinds as we move through holiday of last year. Now we're seeing inflationary pressures, so people are kind of balancing their economic bullishness with some of the pending factors that are going to diminish their ability to spend, and global uncertainty. So we've got a couple things to cover here, and we're gonna move through these slides. So mentioned to you this phenomenal study from Accenture. It's called the Reimagined Consumer. So they went out and asked a number of consumers. And I love this because it holds true for me personally, right? And so that's what we always connect with. That's what I always connect with. The pandemic made me totally revise my personal purpose and what's important for me in life, right? When you have to have that stark change of, you lived your life one way for a while and then many things changed. Consumers have really reevaluated. And so when they went out and talked to a large number of consumers, 50% agreed or strongly agreed with this statement, right? A small group, 17% said, nah, like the pandemic, none of this has really changed who I am or what I value, but 50% really, really agreed that it did. I know that was true for me personally, as I mentioned. So what does this mean, right? So there's some core attributes of why people purchase, right? And what kind of impacts brand affinity and loyalty. So if you look, let's first look on the right. You've got traditional consumers, right? Heavy value on quality and price, right? Those have always been these leading factors of why you buy or what brand loyalty or brand affinity means to you. Now look, if you move to the left, quality and price are important, but they've decreased to a decent amount, right? Versus the traditional consumer. So what we're seeing here, if you remember, 50% of consumers are reimagined. So they're less price sensitive and less quality sensitive. And you'll see a lot of these convenience and community factors now stand out. So a reimagined consumer, ease and convenience, pretty similar with traditional. Service and personal care, right? There's a huge expansion and awareness of wellness, mental health, personal health, right? Like fitness, all of that. So that starts to factor in for this reimagined consumer. Trust and reputation. Who am I working with? Are they an ethical company? Really, it over-indexes on reimagined consumer, and especially when you look at this generationally, much more important to the younger consumers. So Gen Z, millennial, that becomes more important even so. Product origin, how is this made? Is it sustainable? Is it ethical? More important with a reimagined consumer. And health and safety, right? So how am I purchasing this? How is it made? How is it consumed? That becomes more important. So you start to see this swing with the reimagined consumer to these factors, right? Which is much less about, can I get the best deal, right? Which kind of has always been, you got pricing, promotions, all that great stuff in marketing, to more of the softer benefits. And we'll see another great study and how that factors into loyalty, really overall. So I think this is super fascinating, right? These motivations, these deep-seated motivations are shifting in a pretty material way for reimagined consumers. So here we have some great data from McKinsey, right? What are the themes? Let's talk to consumers. They went out and looked at consumers in October of last year, and there's some great themes that have emerged. Strong spending, right? Strong economic tailwinds. Through the pandemic, we're starting to see that potentially shake a little bit. I think a lot of consumers are cautiously optimistic right now, unsure, right, what these other impacts, inflation, global economic trends are really going to do. Fuel prices in the US are up, all that kind of stuff, right, which people start to hedge a little bit. Omnichannel ascendant. So we're going to see some really interesting data about how channels have evolved, both because of consumer behavior and how brands have started to go to market. Loyalty versus availability. Whether it was sheer retail availability, like you couldn't go to stores, so it forced new habits. I always love to tell the story, right? My parents, they're of a certain generation. They would never have bought their groceries online. Well, pandemic hits, now they do it, and now they continue to do it even though they don't have to from a personal safety perspective. Home versus out of home. I'm sitting here talking to you from my home office, right? And that's going to continue. So the old retail or personal habit situations of, I used to hop in my car, visit this coffee shop on the way to work and swing by this store and pick up my groceries or run my errands, like all of that's changed, right? Dry cleaning, where you shop, how you shop. So as people have migrated more in-home and as they reemerge out of home, but that looks totally different, right? There's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of new things we need to think about for loyalty. So New habits and routines, right? So let's talk about work from home, because this is going to be one of the biggest motivators. I'm working from home. I love it. So, 61% of people are like me. They prefer being fully remote. I love to see people. I just don't love driving that much. So, hey, 3% want to work full-time at a physical office when workplaces are available. But 97% of us, guys, we want some degree of flexibility. We've seen this when we've talked to our employees, when I've talked to my team, when I talk to my friends. People are kind of like, listen, I want to, when it makes sense, when there's that opportunity for social engagement or whiteboarding, right? I love it. Like, I want to go and see people, but I don't really want to wear like real pants and put on a full face of makeup every day. So people are kind of choosing, that's me, but people are kind of choosing how and where they want to go to work. So this is disrupting the very fabric of what we knew as like shopping and consumer behavior just 2 years ago. Pretty fascinating. So this is a great slide. It's global in nature, again, from McKinsey. They're doing phenomenal work. There's a spectrum of loyalty, right? So if you think about what loyalty used to be, right, it's very behavioral. And these are consumers, the percent, if you kind of look at the chart here on the right, of consumers have tried new shopping behaviors since COVID-19. India far and away, 96% of consumers in India have tried new shopping behaviors, all the way down to Japan, about 30%. But you can see the majority of consumers globally have tried new shopping behaviors, whether this is my parents ordering their groceries online, whether this is me doing kind of a drive up and pick up, right? We've all changed our habits, and our habits will change loyalty. Then what you see here is the intent to continue. So if you look down the right-hand side, these are consumers who are saying, I changed my behavior because of the pandemic, but I'm going to keep these behaviors, right? It forced me to change what I do and how I engage. And I like it, right? Like sometimes we need a little swift kick to change our behavior. And that's what the pandemic was, right? From a consumer shopping behavior, it forced, right? It was kind of this hard force into new things, and it drove a lot of adoption. If you look at things like e-commerce, digital wallets, there's a lot of the conversation in those markets and industries that are like, listen, it was 10 years of innovation in a year, right? Because it forced all of these changes and all of this adoption. So now let's look at what some of these changes became or are. So retail e-commerce, if you look here, 2019, huge industry, right? 3.3 trillion. And then if you look at 2023, which believe it or not is just next year, it's going to almost double by then, right? And you see huge jumps in the annualized growth, and it's total percent of retail sales. So not surprising to anyone on this call, I'm sure, right? E-commerce has grown, whether it's your personal consumption or the business you're in, but it's growing by such a staggering amount. It's forecasted to continue. Again, these new behaviors people have really acclimated to and will continue, right? Habit, behavior breeds habit breeds loyalty in many cases. All right. Then direct-to-consumer shift. We've talked a little bit about this. So e-commerce is driven by consumer adoption. It's also driven by a lot of brands, right? Going direct to consumer. And you see a lot of individual brands or startups really innovating how consumers buy certain things, right? Whether it's non-branded products, whether it's plastic-free products, whether it's, BarkBox, gift boxes for your dogs. There's so much that's interesting, right, with this direct-to-consumer approach that has disintermediated traditional retail. So it's fascinating, and it's continued to drive this shift in behavior, right? A lot of this commercial innovation has driven those shifts as well. Then there's huge factors of subscription, right? The subscription industry itself is set to double yet again by 2025. Subscription companies, right, are growing faster than traditional retail. You've got a great factor of annual recurring revenue, and consumers are voting with their wallet. I love subscriptions because it's loyalty, right, plus payments, or loyalty plus commerce. You're taking a transactional consumer and turning it into a recurring consumer, right? And that recurrence helps to breed loyalty. So it's really fantastic, and consumers are leaning into this for a number of reasons. So why do consumers love subscription, right? They love direct to consumer. They've got choice of products. They've got better selection. For subscriptions, good value for price, high quality, convenience, variety of pricing options, flexibility. And some of the really cool things that we see when we talk to our end users or the consumers is it's this shift from ownership, right, to experience. So used to be you'd go and buy a record, right? Now you have Spotify or Pandora or whatever, right? And you really you subscribe and you listen, right? But you're not buying a record or a CD or a tape, depending on how old you are, an 8-track, right? So all of these great things, people are really less concerned about the tangible. You're even seeing subscriptions emerge for things like travel, where people just want to participate. They want exclusivity and access, which is a big thing that has driven loyalty for a really long time. So we're seeing those needs kind of converge. And we'll talk about that in a second. So work from home, when we think about omnichannel, to kind of go back to that theme, this is a really interesting chart, again, by McKinsey. So over here, you've got kind of this dark teal, I guess. And this is people that shop exclusively online. This teal middle is people that are omnichannel, right? So we've seen this continued migration. So e-commerce is up absolutely, but retail is still important, right? Because people still like to feel in touch. They still like the shopping experience. But what we've seen is that retail has been completely reimagined, like many things, right? You've got your kind of buy online, pick up in store. You've got curbside, you've got delivery. So retail has transformed. It's become much more experiential. It's become much more convenient, right? They've started to reimagine things, even in grocery, right? It's new products, it's seasonality, it's exclusivity. So retail has become much less about satisfying the everyday needs to kind of meeting those needs of showrooming, right? And tangibility and exclusivity. So it's really interesting to see how pervasive omnichannel is, even in categories like grocery, which you figure would be a fairly tangible experience. So categories are shifting in spending, right? Many categories have kind of gone up over the last 2 years. So you see people, no surprise, things like takeaway food, home entertainment, virtual online activities, health and beauty, DIY are huge categories. So across the board, consumers are really engaging deeply and very bullish about their level of spend in a large number of categories. So fantastic outlook for many businesses. And global logistics has played a part in this omni-channel drive. So there's still supply chain issues, not as exacerbated as they were over the kind of Christian holidays and the winter holidays at the end of the year. But supply chain is still driving a lot of challenges with out of stocks, right? And what does out of stock do with loyalty? Well, you see here, 62% of people could not purchase at least one item, only 13 waited, right? So you see a lot of category shifts. If you don't have product availability or you can't maybe do a pre-buy, then people are switching brands and products, they're switching retailers, or they're just not buying at all. So supply chain logistics also factors into what they're thinking about. So then ultimately, loyalty, right? So we've got these consumer trends, we've got commerce. So what do people want from loyalty? So rational benefits in the orange, these are the tangible things. These are like your points or your cash back. And those have long been kind of the stalwarts of loyalty. But what I love here is we're seeing the shift. 33% of people want emotional benefits, right? I want to feel part of something. I want to feel good. And 25% want social or community benefits. So you're starting to see this move of loyalty out of just purely rational, right? Again, to tie it back to the front, this reimagined consumer is less about price, right? And price is very rational. Points are very rational to emotional benefits, inclusion, right? Satisfaction and community benefits, right? To kind of the give back, participation, all of that type of stuff. So there's a lot of great trends going on, right? Each of you are figuring out how to navigate these within your own business. And so really the answer with most things, most channels, most benefits is you really have to work to try to satisfy many of these, right? You need to satisfy most channels, you need to satisfy most pricing models, and you really need to satisfy the emotional and the rational and the community side of a brand. So lots of fun data to think about, understand for your business and how it would apply. Our key considerations are, let's align your offering to these consumer priorities. Everybody's going to look at these types of things and really figure out what makes the most sense for your consumers, for your brand, for your business. Define what reimagined loyalty looks like, right? Consumers are new. It's really important to talk to them and to understand what's driving their motivations and their needs. And then continue to push on that consumer experience, right? It's no longer setting up a points platform. It's no longer setting up one pricing model. It's not even one channel anymore, right? You really have to think about how that consumer experience meets the needs of today's reimagined consumer. And with that, we are done. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate everybody. I know it's a precious commodity, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Theresa. I mean, marketing and sales is a never-ending process for business owners, but it helps if you can keep loyal customers purchasing from you for a long time. So thank you, Theresa, for the amazing insights today. You were awesome. Let's now go back to the lounge area and join our next panel discussion titled Gamification as a Marketing Super Tool. See you there.